Here in Finland it's starting to get a bit cooler now, so it's a good time to start making yourself headbands or ear warmers. In chunky yarn, these are very quick to make, so you can make many different ones to go with whatever you are wearing. This interesting texture is very easy to make. It's simply half double crochets with a slight modification. The stitch I have here on every second row is a variation of a half double crochet. It's actually an easy stitch, although it might look a bit complicated. And this here is the wrong side of it. From the other side, there aren't any of those bumps. And I'm going to make the one that we work on now with opposite colors, so that it will be this here pink with this fig color border around it. What you need for the headband is some super bulky yarn in 2 different colors. The finished band weighs about 110 grams or 4 ounces, so that's the amount of yarn you need. The alternative is to use 3 or 4 balls of double knitting or worsted weight yarns together. So you put them together and use it as one, or use different textures of yarns together. In the white band I have 2 strands of mohair with chunky yarn, and you can check the video description for buying these ones. Then you need one big button. So I just have here whatever I have collected over time, so you just need one. And then what you need is a large crochet hook. I'm going to use this here one. It's 8 millimeter. This one's bigger. It doesn't actually have a number, but it needs to be big. 8, 9, 10 millimeter. And then you need a big needle for sewing this here loop. Also, this one is quite wide, so I'll make this new one bump narrower than what this is. We are starting here, making this here pointed bit first, and it's just single crochets. And I'm using American crochet terms. Single crochet in British crochet terms is double crochet. And the border gets done afterwards, so we don't need to think about that at the moment. Start by making a slip knot and chain 3. And then 2 single crochets in the second stitch from the hook. 2 single crochets. And 2 single crochets in the first of the stitches on the chain. Chain 1 for turning. And again 2 single crochets in that very first stitch there. And then 1 in the next one and 1 in the one after. And 2 at the end of the row. So that increases it. Now we have 6 stitches and we will need 9. Chain 1 and turn, and 2 single crochets in the first one, and then 1 in the next one, and then again 2 in one of the stitches in the middle, and go towards the end of the row, and 2 in the last one. So now I have 9 here. If you want the band wider, you can do another row where you increase more. The technique will be the same. And then before we start those different stitches, 1 row of just single crochets. Chain 1 and a single crochet through the row, each stitch. Then chain 1, and we always chain 1 for turning whichever kind of a row we have with the 2 alternating rows. So now we're starting this special stitch. Insert the hook in that very first stitch there, and just go and get the yarn. Then we start a half double crochet in the next one. So yarn over, insert the hook in the next stitch, get the yarn, and now you have 4 loops on the hook. And at this stage, get the yarn and pull through all of them at one go. Like this here. And that their bump will be on the wrong side. We don't see much yet since we only have 1. And then insert the hook in the same stitch where you just worked in and get the yarn, and then a half double crochet in the next one. Again, now we have 4 and pull the yarn through all of them. So this is the stitch we repeat. So it's not difficult, as you could see. So insert the hook in the same hole, that's very important. Then get the yarn, start a half double crochet and through all of them at one go. So now we start to see a bit more than it's making these here bumps. It's sort of like the first stitch makes the half double crochet bend into 2, and that's what makes the bump. So continue the same. Now I made those until the end of the row, but this isn't quite finished yet. We only made one of these bump stitches in the first and second, and that means that to keep the same number of stitches we need to make one more. And also for the fact that this is the type of a stitch that easily starts going sideways. So it's good actually that we have to do 2 at the very end. That keeps the sides straight. So at the end we'll make one in the same stitch. So we don't have a second one where we go to. Insert the hook in the last stitch. And then half a double crochet in that same stitch. And here again we have the 4 and we pull the yarn through them. So that was the row, and this is actually every second row is always this same. Chain 1 and turn, and every other row is simply 1 single crochet in each stitch, and always take both loops of the stitch. So right through there. Single crochet every stitch until the end. There. And you may want to check, especially in the beginning, that you are keeping the same number of stitches on every row so that you don't increase or decrease by accident. So I need to have 9 single crochets on every row and 9 bumps on every row. There. And I mentioned that in the one that I showed in the beginning, I had 10. But as long as you keep the same number. And then chain 1. And the row with the half double crochets always goes the same way. So insert the hook in the first stitch. And then a half double crochet in the next one. Up till here. And then pull through. And then go in the same one. And the next one. And so on. And remember always to make 2 at the end. And this is what you then continue. You alternate these 2 rows until it's long enough, which means that it needs to be fairly tight around your head. But remember that we'll still make this here bit at the other end too. So you need to do it so that it's tight, but that it has a little bit more room to make another thing there for the button. On this here one, I have 16 of these bump rows. So that gives you an idea of what approximately it is. But it depends on who it is for, and it also depends on your yarn a bit. So here it is. And finish with a single crochet row. And then we need to make the point. Chain 1, turn, skip that very first one, and then the next 2 single crochets together. And then just single crochets towards the end of the row. And when you have 3 left, crochet 2 together and just leave the last one. Chain 1 and turn. Again, skip the first one and then just a single crochet, not a decrease this time, on the first one, and then the next, but decrease the next 2. There are many different ways of doing this, so as long as you decrease into a point. Now it's like that. Again, chain 1 and turn, and then I'm just going to have 2 single crochets in those 2 middle stitches there. So now we have a point there. And now I'm going to make the loop for the button at this end. And for that it's worth leaving a long tail of your yarn so that you can sew that without having to have extra yarn ends to weave in. So quite a long one. It doesn't matter if it's too long. And then with that, pull it through. Then we'll do the border. So take your second color, or it can of course also just be one color. So here's the same kind of a border, just in the same color. We are making the border on that side where you have the bumps sort of upwards. And I'm starting at the end where I started the whole thing, so not where I have the long yarn end. And attach the other yarn there and chain 1. And then we'll simply go round it once using single crochets at as even spaces as you can. So not to stretch it and not to tighten it. I'm leaving the yarn end inside my stitches. And here where the bumps start, I'll do 2 in one space just so that it doesn't start to pull. And now the 2 edges are slightly different. At this end I'll take this here where the bump is, this here stitch behind it, and make one always there, and then just one in between. So that makes it I don't have too many in there. And then again there, so like this here, and just keep going like this until the other end of this side. Here I'm coming to the other end now, and here where this bump rows end, again 2 single crochets in the same space, and then keep going towards the point. And there's this other long yarn here now. Trying to get it out of the way. There. And then just sort of skip over it so that it stays there. And then when I come in the middle of that, I'll again put 2 stitches in the one. And then do the other side of this here point bit. Again here, before the half double crochets start, 2 in one stitch. And this side is slightly different, so it's actually easier on this side to find an easy place to get your stitches in. Just the way the start and the end of the row are the rows were different. So finish it off, continue all the way there and then the other side of the point, and then here 2 stitches at the end, and then you can fasten it off. Then sew the button at one end, and then take the long yarn you left and put it into a big needle, and we make a loop. This will be closed quite tight, so it doesn't matter exactly what size your loop, your buttonhole is, but as long as the button fits through it. So I'll start it in here, then make a loop with the yarn like this across the point, and sew it. How long would it need to be? Like that. Another stitch to secure the size, and then make the same size of a loop. Back again. And then we can stitch these two together. I like to use this stitch that you put the needle in from the front to back, take this end of the yarn and go round the needle like this, and then pull it into a stitch, and make enough of these stitches to go across here, in there, round, and pull. Here we are. This will keep us warm. And check out also this pattern for fingerless gloves. Till next time.